And good day, good day, good day. Welcome to another talk experience in Korea. Just a quick thing. The previous place that I told you about that we went for a short, like 2 night stay over at, was actually the Lotte Resort in Buyo. 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 Yes. Quite a nice little place. If you know how to spell it, find it. The Lotte Resort in Buyo. And you'll see exactly what I was talking about. Sorry, I was just drank some coffee. Now it's still in my mustache and everything. And Buyo was about. Holy balls. Buyo was about an hour or so drive away from Jeonju, right? So we get on the bus from Buyo. We had an awesome time there. Let me open up my Facebook again and look at the photos. And we had an awesome time there and everything. And then we went to the place, like I said, the city called Jeonju in Jeollabuk-do province, I believe, in Jeonbuk. Jeonju in Jeonbuk. And it was quite a cool place. It was, like I said, a cool thing about the Buya Hotel, the resort or whatever, because I was the oldest man there, I got my own hotel. I got my own hotel. I got my own room. So I stayed on my own, I got my own room because I was the oldest and everything, and they're like, well, okay, cool. Lots of interesting things about being the oldest, which we are going to get to back to eventually. There's a bunch of incidences that happened that I got treated differently because I seemed older. Maybe it was the beard. I don't know. But yeah, so we had some fun in those museums. That museum that I was trying to pronounce the last time, the Jongram Saji Museum, is basically the Pagoda Museum, basically, as far as I could tell. I did some research after the fact. Maybe I should do it before. But anyway, so we went to Jeonju, and we go to this one place, and it's practically walking distance. It's literally just on the outer edge of the university. I remember there was a bridge going across from the one side to the other side, and underneath that bridge was a Starbucks coffee place. And we essentially we went to Buyo for I think 2 days, and we went to Jeonju for like 2 or 3 days. So we essentially just basically went for last minute crash courses. They're trying to cram stuff into our minds just before we go to make sure we're prepared. Like, we were over prepared when we went. I believe I was over prepared when I went to my school, when I started teaching and everything. And I believe everyone was slightly over prepared by that time and fed up, and they just wanted to continue with their stuff. And we went out and drank somewhere. I can't remember where we drank, though. All I know is I had to find an PC bung, and the closest one was quite a distance away because I couldn't read Korean. Still, at that stage, I could read survival Korean if it was like... if I stood there for 10 minutes and for like, this is this. And mainly how I found PC bungs is I looked for PC, and I'm like, cool, that's a PC room. But I still had some... at that stage, I still had some... taste, so I didn't want to go into any shaky one, and it always ends up that I go into a shaky PC bung in any case. So yeah. And I went to the PC bungs there and spoke to, oh crap, what is that guy's name? I wish we could tag him, but a lot of the times people being tagged in these photos don't want to be tagged, so that's a big thing for them. Spoke with him a couple of times, smoked a bit. We all had our own room, which was quite cool, in the Jeonju area. And it was, I believe we left the Monday or the Tuesday morning. If I'm correct here, let me just check my time here. I don't know what date it is. I don't know what date this is. This is quite... We had to start on the 1st of April 2014. Now, I can't remember the exact day it was. And we were like, okay, this is gonna be interesting. I remember I remember they basically told me, I believe it was worked out that I had 2 days before I had to start school. That's how it worked out, 2 or 3 days, so that I can acclimatize to my new place. But anyway, so we're at the end of that morning, and it's like, and I look at the people there, and we're like 10 people that gotten really close, really, really close. We were like 10 people, and I looked at them, and I'm like, oh my God, we're in the same province, but what's the chances? What's the freaking chances? So it's also another bittersweet send-off. I meet my co-teacher at that stage. Her name was Suyon, and we like sat across from each other, and she's like, are you ready? And like how they worked it out is we had breakfast together. We had breakfast. No, we had sort of an early lunch together, like a 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock-ish lunch. And we sat across from each other, and we started talking. She asks me about South Africa, and I'm all professional, like, and I tell her, listen, I do get motion sickness. And she looks at me. I remember this interaction. She looks at me, and she's like, motion? And I'm like, oh, and she's like, oh, and she said a Korean word for that. I'm like, yeah. And she's like, oh, we can get stuff. I'm like, yeah, no, okay, cool, let's get stuff. And like I said, my way to treat motion sickness is to fall the hell asleep. Now, I'm about 2 hours from Jeonju itself. We're about 2 hours, an hour 45 minutes via bus. About 2 hours via bus, about an hour and a half via car, maybe an hour and 15 minutes. And I'm so excited to go. But remember, this was an entire month of us studying every day, of us doing things. All those things piled up, all those things piled up. So we had about a month worth of cram lessons and cram sessions and whatever about English and how to handle difficult students and everything. And I look at her, and we're driving, and I'm like, I know I'm going to miss a lot of the countryside. And I told her, I'm going to try and stay awake, but if I sleep, and she's like, oh no, it's cool. And she starts like driving, and we're talking, and after a while I just hear her laugh, and I wake up, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. I was like, sorry. And she says, no, Quinn Chana. And I'm like, it's okay. And I'm like, okay, cool, thank you. And she's very beautiful. She's like, there's a lot of beautiful people that I met in South Korea, and she's like one of them, In fact, I can almost say all the people that I've met in Korea was beautiful in a way. But like, she was the one that's like, I saw her, and I'm like, holy balls, she's nice. She's got a nice smile. Sort of like a 5-second crush on her, and then I'm like, professional, and continue on with my life. But she was one of the, like I said, I'm going to say a lot of beautiful people here. She was also another beautiful person. And, we get to, and she's like, hey, Zaffa, we're close. And I wake up, and I see this small town coming up, and we're driving from, I'm trying to figure out which we're driving from Jeonju, so we came in from the side. So we're driving towards this town, and it's essentially a road, and all of a sudden houses start popping up and businesses start popping up, and I'm like, oh my Lord. And I'm sitting there going, okay. And she's like, yeah, welcome home. And we get there. We stop next to this restaurant. Couldn't read the name of the restaurant, but it was a Nolbu Bosam restaurant. We stopped next to this restaurant. I'm like, okay, cool, there's a restaurant. Are we eating something? Me thinking with my stomach and everything. And she's like, oh no, come out. And right next to the restaurant is these like 14, 15 stairs up. And you go down a hallway, and at the very end of the hallway, she like leads me to that place. And she leads me to that place, and she's like, welcome to your place. And I open it, and she comes in with me, and she shows me around a bit, and she's like, okay, cool. And I go to the bedroom. There's no bed. No bed. It's literally, so how the apartment looked, what the apartment looked like is you walk in, you open the door, and there's literally a wall in front of you, which is part of a hallway. And to your, now the camera is switched over, so let me just keep in mind, how I'm explaining, because from my side it makes sense. So you walks like sort of into like a part of a wall, and then you see like the stove and the sink and the washing machine next to it. And there's a big white box right next to that, like sort of eye height. And then there's this little box, a machine thing with a dial or something on it. And it's a room, and there's a cupboard right next to me. So to my left hand side, there's a cupboard right next to me. And I'm like, cool, this is the kitchen. So basically, to my left hand side, big ass room, enough to fit a table and 4 chairs, and have some clothing, those set up clothing line things. I have enough of that, and a fridge, and that's it. And I'm like, okay, cool. So that's it. And down this to my right hand side is a hallway leading to a closed door. And I'm like, cool, that's probably the bathroom. And I walk through, and I'm like, oh no, in the hallway there's another door that opens into the bathroom. A giant ass bathroom. Man, I could literally do a one-man show in that bathroom, right? A one-man show in that bathroom. One shower. It's a wet room, basically. It's a shower head and a drain, and the shower is connected. I'm looking at it as if I'm seeing the shower standing from the door. I'm sorry, guys. The shower is connected via the shower taps are connected to the sink, the basin, whatever you want to call it. Giant mirror against the wall. Like, I'm talking maybe a meter by, maybe about 700 millimeters by a meter. It's a big as mirror, right? And the toilet, and I'm like, cool, wet room, cool, I get this. There's my little, there, and right, and as you enter the bathroom, in this corner on your left-hand side, the toilet is there. So it's literally, you can sit on the toilet and close the door with your feet if you wanted to. But anyway, and I go to the next room, and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And I go to the next room, and I'm like, opening it, and I'm like, cool, this is just a room. There's nothing in that room. The only thing that was in that room was a very thin mattress and some covers and 2 pillows, really shitty pillows. And I'm like, okay, well, this is my bedroom now. And I'm like, okay, cool, no, this is good, thanks. And she shows me around, and she shows me everything. She's like, there's the aircon, it works like this. And I'm like, cool, this is how it works. And she goes out, and I'm like, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to seeing you. When should I be seeing you? She's like, oh no, come. You can come 2 days from now. And I'm like, okay, cool, I'll do that. And I think it was 2 days. I believe, I want to say I arrived on the weekend, so the Monday we started. I think we started on the Monday. I think we arrived on the Friday there, but something tells me we arrived on the weekend. Anyway, but I believe like we started on a Monday. That's what I remember. This is very hazy. This particular details of that is very hazy because it was a lot of new things to take in. And she like writes, she also wrote on a piece of paper, Shim 1, I need to take the bus that goes to Shim 1. I need to look for the bus name with that says Shim 1 and everything. And I'm like, cool, I'm ready. And she's like, oh, bus is just down the street. I'm like, you know what? I'll walk down the street both ways until I find either a bus stop or a bus station. I'm cool. I'm really cool. I got this. And she leaves, and I start unpacking. And as I'm unpacking, the reality sets in. I'm in a different town, in a different country. No one speaks English around me. It's a small town. What the hell have I gotten myself into? And all I know is I want to find a gimpub place at some point and eat some of that. And also, what TaLK didn't know, what the guys at TaLK didn't know, and what not a lot of people knew, I didn't come over with a lot of money. And I don't spend a lot of money. You know, I was very frugal at that stage. But how it worked is we only got our first paycheck. All our money got paid to us like you pay for your plane ticket and everything, and then they reimburse you 2 months after you started working. Basically, they reimburse your paycheck, your plane tickets, and whatever 2 months after you start working, or 2 months after you got into Korea. So from February till March, from February till March, I had to survive. I did not bring enough money with me. And then I realized, okay, you know what? I've got a bus ticket. And I do remember, like, when I was in England, I also survived on very little food. So I was like, you know what? It's just a month, Zaffa. It's just a month. You can survive on this. You can survive. You're gonna set aside money to go to your local PC bung, and you're gonna chill there. And you're gonna have enough money to smoke. You're gonna have enough money, and this was when cigarettes were still $2.50 in Korea. You're gonna have enough money to smoke. You will have food. All you need to do is survive over weekends, because during the weekdays, you'll only eat lunch at school. That is your main thing. You're going to have coffee. Make sure you have coffee. Make sure you have enough coffee to carry you through a month of working. And then get to school, eat at school, eat a lot at school, and then just go back home and not eat anything, you know? And if you have to eat something, go buy like a crap ton of noodles and just eat that. You know, that's how I was pushing it. And that's the future story, but that's how fine I was pushing it. And I'm sitting there packing out, and I'm like, okay, cool. Now I need to. This was like 2:00 in the afternoon that we got there, and I remember it was still very blue, very not misty. It was cold, but not misty. You know, it was very blue. I remember that. And I'm busy packing out clothes and everything, and all of a sudden I hear a knock at my door. And I'm like, oh my God, I need to speak to someone in Korean. I'm freaking the hell out. Open the door. Soo-yeon, my co-teacher, going there, and she hands me a wrapped thing. And she's like, oh, food for you. Just to say thank you for coming here. And I'm like, I remember it was in a yellow container. And I open it up. And that was my first interaction with a Bap Burger, which is basically a normal burger, as you would think it's a normal burger, but instead of patties, it's rice. I ate that thing like I was never eating again. And I said thank you to her. Obviously, I walked with her to her car, and she pointed me to the direction of the bus station. I'm like, cool, thank you. And that was my first few hours in Gochang. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.